Welcome back, one and all. If you missed out on part 1, here's the lowdown. I'm going through every single DCEU movie to talk about what went wrong or right, and we're having some fun, making some jokes. It's a casual affair. Last time we tackled the Snyder Years, everything from Man of Steel to Justice League, so you're interested in that, the link is down below. Now, we're in the era where DC said, well, we tried dark and gritty, so let's pivot completely in the opposite direction. Most of these projects were under Walter Hamada, hence why I've dubbed this era the Hamada Years. So without further ado, let's jump into the first project, which was in the year 2018. This movie rocks. Shut up. Pause. Rewind.
Scratch that. Reverse it.
So, back in 2014, DC announced a slate of movies that would follow Batman v Superman. Among them was Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, Justice League, followed by The Flash and Aquaman. Aquaman is the only project from this slate that actually made it to theaters. Yes, we did end up getting The Flash and Shazam, but I don't really think those ended up being in the spirit that they were originally intended when the slate was announced. So I kind of consider Aquaman to be a weird intersection between the old Snyder era of DC films and this new Hamada lighter tone era, and I think that's part of why I like it. Now, a lot of the casting, including Aquaman himself, Mera, and Vulko, were done for the Justice League movie. So this movie was meant to be springboarding off of that. Except that movie was bad, so instead there's only one small reference to Steppenwolf.
You defeated Steppenwolf and saved Atlantis.
That had nothing to do with Atlantis.
And the rest is more or less an origin story. When it comes to the movie itself, I touched on it a bit in my Aquaman 2 review, but I unapologetically love this movie. Funny enough, when I first saw it, I didn't like it that much. Then I threw it on in the background a couple times while I was doing other stuff and found myself just sitting there watching it, and now I've learned to stop hating myself and start loving this stupid movie. I think the plot and story of this movie are extremely generic. It is literally Black Panther again, and we got a Black Panther movie in the exact same year. However, I think this is visually a step up from all the other live-action comic book movies that were coming out in 2018. The colors are extremely bright and vibrant, Atlantis looks like a really cool place to chill, and the costumes, my god. I could talk all day about how much I love these costumes, especially Aquaman, Orm, and Black Manta's page-to-screen adaptations. So good. The action in the movie is really lively and fun with these big sweeping camera movements. I love the final fight between Orm and Arthur. It's so cinematic. In the rain, I love it. I love this underwater war we have with the crab people. I unironically love how on the nose this kiss is, being right in the middle of a war. I just feel like James Wan decided he was going to do everything he could with the concept of an Aquaman. But it's not all good. The comedy doesn't land.
Could have just peed on it.
And like I've said previously, Jason Momoa is just not what I picture when it comes to Aquaman. He works fine for this version of the character, but I hope to see a more traditional version of Arthur Curry in the new DC universe. This movie is also a bit longer than it needs to be. You start to feel the length when they get to the desert part and Aquaman starts talking about urine. Also, Nicole Kidman being alive must be the most telegraphed twist in the history of superhero cinema. But I do like the ending scene with her and Thomas reuniting. It's very sweet the way they do it. Ultimately, I just think this is a really enjoyable superhero movie. I watch it a lot when I don't feel like sitting in for something too heavy, and I think a decent amount of people felt the same way too. This is the only DCEU movie to make over $1 billion somehow, which is interesting because it came out in a pretty stacked December with Bumblebee and Spider-Verse also out at the same time, but it still managed to dominate. It was also the last DCEU movie to actually make money. But overall, I think audiences were pretty cool with this movie. It didn't get great reviews or anything, but it was like DC's Fast and Furious. Fun time at the theaters, you take your kids, you all have a good time. A good movie. Well, you fooled me before, DC. The next one will probably be bad. Well, I'll be. Them DC boys actually done did it. Surprisingly enough, this movie was announced in that original slate I mentioned earlier, but I do imagine that what was being developed was a more serious take on the character than what we ended up with. Production here in Shazam land went along pretty smoothly without any major news stories surrounding it, besides The Rock. So, way back before the existence of the DCEU, Dwayne Johnson was cast to play Black Adam in a Shazam movie. As production on this movie approached, DC and The Rock's ego, The Rock, decided that Black Adam should have his own movie before meeting Shazam. So, this movie was redeveloped to remove Black Adam as the main villain. Besides that stuff, the movie went along as the director David F. Sandberg intended. And don't worry, we will circle around as to why that Black Adam thing ended up being a horrible idea, but those factors actually aren't there in this movie. And I love this movie. When it was coming out, I literally forgot all about it. I don't even remember seeing a trailer or anything, but I did go and see it, and I walked out of the theater literally beaming. I may have overrated it a bit at the time, but it just gave me so many feelings reminiscent of my favorite superhero films like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man and Richard Donner's Superman. It's a very classic origin tale, learning how to use the powers while simultaneously learning to be a better person. Around this time, superhero movies were kind of getting away from this classic structure. Characters like Aquaman and Black Panther were the big money makers, but didn't have a lot of those classic superhero elements like secret identities or just stopping regular crime. I love that so much of this movie involves Billy just stopping stuff like robberies, bus crashes, all that stuff. I think Zachary Levi and Asher Angel do a really good job of balancing Billy out in this movie, and the reason I compliment that is because with a character like Shazam, it's important for both parts of the hero to be equally fleshed out. A lot of times, it does feel like they're the same guy, something that even the sequel wasn't fully able to capture. I also love the supporting cast, Freddy, Mary, the whole family. Billy's character arc ties in really nicely with him learning to share his literal power with his new family after being closed off for so long. One of my favorite things about Shazam is that they're just having so much fun with the character's powers and premise. I love seeing Billy use his powers to buy beer and rob ATMs because that's what a real person would do with Shazam powers, and it's nice to see the filmmakers have some fun with it. But besides just the silly use of the powers, we get to see cool uses of them as well.
Gotcha. Shazam!
It has the spirit of the Shazam comics while still being a unique take. It's not a perfect movie. The plot is generic, the villain is underdeveloped, and not all the humor lands. This is such a fun, light, breezy film that still manages to treat its characters seriously when it needs to. Not all movies know how to do that. In terms of the aftermath, DC, in their continuing brilliance, decided that releasing this movie right before Moby Dick was destined to come and destroy the global box office was a good idea. So it drowned underneath that, but still performed well enough to get a sequel greenlit. I think DC was pretty happy with this one, since they were fine with swallowing the loss and moving full steam ahead with the plan. And they have the perfect sequel set up for Black Adam to come in.
What could possibly go wrong?
Anyway, things were looking up. 2 good ones in a row. But surely the next one's gonna be bad, right?
This is our story. And I'm telling it, so I'll start where I fucking want.
Alright, I admit it. This one, I guess, is a bit of a hot take, but I really like this movie. Birds of Prey, and though we should have just called this movie Harley Quinn, is the next DCEU movie, and it returns us to the Suicide Squad corner of the DCEU. This movie started development after the success of Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn in Suicide Squad. The idea was for a Harley Quinn quote-unquote solo film to involve other female characters, like either the Gotham City Sirens or the Birds of Prey. But as always, DC decided to handicap the movie by forcing them to remove both the Penguin and Batgirl from the script. The Penguin because of his future appearance in The Batman, and Batgirl because of her getting a solo movie that we all remember and love. But lo and behold, the movie did get made, with the Birds of Prey lineup including Huntress, Black Canary, Renee Montoya, and Cassandra Cain. Now pause. This movie is not comic accurate. In fact, it is very not comic accurate. But in this case, I really don't care. This is just a fun girl gang action blockbuster movie with Harley Quinn as the lead, and not really a Birds of Prey movie. In fact, I feel like if they just called this Harley Quinn instead of Birds of Prey, the discussion around this film would be entirely different. 1. General audiences do not know who or what the Birds of Prey are. 2. Harley is the main character anyway, and the whole movie is from her perspective. Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey would have been a cute name for this movie, and you could have used it for other Harley movies where she interacts with other DC groups. Harley Quinn and the Gotham City Sirens, Harley Quinn and the, I don't know, Metal Men. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. The movie itself revolves around Harley's breakup with the Joker, which happened off-screen because nobody wanted Jared Leto within 1,000 feet of the set. After the breakup, Harley gets involved with a bigger plot involving Black Mask and Cassandra Cain, and what follows is a silly little plot where a bunch of different people with a bunch of different agendas interact and get involved with one another. What I like here are a few things, namely the action scenes were a lot of fun and feel very spiritually in line with Harley, especially having a whole fight sequence set on roller skates in a funhouse. The cinematography actually pops the fuck off at times. Scenes like the bacon, egg, and cheese fiasco are filmed with the same emphasis as a character death, and I think that's really great. Margot Robbie is still great in the role and really makes it her own in this movie, and the casting for Huntress and Black Canary is especially good, and I wish we got to see some more of them. Ewan McGregor is here having a great time, chewing up the scenery, and I really like that.
You think you can beat me? You're a fucking moron.
It seems like everyone was having a good time on set, and the movie really takes advantage of its lower budget, using a lot of on-location shooting and practical sets. As a Harley movie, this is a ton of fun. Could it lean more into the comic lore? Yeah, I guess so. Cassandra Cain is practically an OC, so I'm not even sure why they would use her name and prevent us from seeing an authentic version of the character later on. If you don't like this movie, I invite you to ask yourself if you'd like it better if it was just called Harley Quinn. My mom loves this movie, and she just calls it Harley Quinn. Anyway, this movie's release brought on the COVID pandemic, so I guess it is kinda bad. Yeah, the movie, which was already kneecapped by the title, was further kicked in the shins by a global pandemic, so the movie ended up making, say it with me now kids, no money! But due to its low budget, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. Now, since the movie came out, it turns out DC changed a whole bunch of stuff behind the scenes and likely made it worse, like they love to do, but I think the director Kathy Ann's voice still shines through in the final product. At this point, I was happy with DC's previous 3 entries, and that new Wonder Woman looked pretty good too.
What could possibly go wrong?
Well, gonna last forever. Much like the last video, I said no one really expected the first Wonder Woman film to actually be good. In that same spirit, I don't think anyone expected the second Wonder Woman film to be this bad. Patty Jenkins was returning, Chris Pine was returning, it was set in the 80s, Pedro Pascal, Kristen Wiig. Yeah, you forgot she was in this, didn't you? The marketing for the movie was honestly pretty good. Plus, with COVID, it got delayed, and people were disappointed because it looked like a fun summer blockbuster. And then they eventually released it on HBO Max.
I need you to give me the stone.
So pause. First of all, I gotta say something. I watched this for the first time with my girlfriend's parents, and to this day, this remains the only superhero movie they have ever watched with me. Guys, I didn't know it was going to be bad either. You wanted to watch it with us. I didn't know. They seem to be under the impression that all superhero movies are like this, and when I say that I like superhero movies, this is what they think I'm talking about. And it's not. I promise. It was COVID. It was slim pickings. I didn't know it was going to be out. It was a new movie. COVID, there's no new movies. Please, answer my texts. So anywho, the movie follows, I don't know, Wonder Woman finds a magic rock or whatever, and it grants everyone wishes, and then she has to stop the guy who keeps making too many wishes after he becomes the rock. It sounds made up, but that's the plot. Wonder Woman is hanging out in the 80s when all of this happens. That's pretty much the only 80s setting that the movie takes advantage of. I think everyone thought this would be a more fun movie with like some 80s jams and yeah, maybe a sillier plot, but it would be, well, I don't know, coherent. They bring back Chris Pine in the weirdest and most uncomfortable possible way by having him take over the body of another man. Why? Literally, what is preventing him from just existing in the actual body? Later in the movie, we see a wall appear out of thin air, so it's not like the wishes have catches. Well, I guess they actually do, but only a few of them even seem that bad. Wonder Woman's powers start fading as a result of the wish, and Pedro Pascal starts going crazy. Besides that, everyone is kinda chilling with their wishes. But nothing can prepare you for just how boring this movie really is. Nothing interesting happens for extremely long stretches of time, only broken up by the most hilarious action set pieces I've ever seen. Honestly, just explaining the plot is giving me a migraine. Cheetah is in this too. She's a nerdy, adorkable girl who brings books to rock concerts or whatever, but people don't take me seriously. So I wish I was a cheetah in order to make myself more powerful. Ah, that's better. Between it all, the movie just fumbles with everything we had going for us last time. Gal Gadot has gotten worse at acting, the action is not cool, and the plot just makes no sense. But it's okay guys, look, the invisible jet. Wonder Woman can fly now, Linda Carter. I feel like this is a very surface level understanding of who Wonder Woman is as a character. This has the conflict end in her telling everybody to give up her wishes by giving a stupid speech on TV about how we all need to learn about the power of love and hug and whatever. Just imagining a child who wishes for like their daddy to be alive again or something, and Wonder Woman comes up and is like, remember what I said on the telly? Like, no. Comic Wonder Woman would do both and be like, I'm gonna save as many people as possible, Wish or no wish, because I'm fucking Wonder Woman, and I can also bring people back to life, apparently. But we'll get there. Look, this movie, it just sucks. Straight up. I do like the scene where Diana and Steve say goodbye again, but other than that, there is nothing in this movie that is worth revisiting in my opinion. It is a weird movie with really weird implications, and I just don't like it. And audiences didn't either. This movie actually debuted with a pretty high Rotten Tomatoes score, and then we all just watched it tank. And here we are. It obviously didn't make much money, but I blame that more so on COVID than anything else. Wonder Woman 3 was greenlit off of this, so I guess it did well enough internally to warrant that. But I don't think that anyone is sad that that Wonder Woman movie is no longer happening. She deserves a lot better than this movie. So, with COVID, not as many DC movies were going to be ready in time for the world to reopen, so DC introduces a new challenger. I hate Justice League more than I hate most things, so despite not being a Snyder diehard, I was excited to see what he was actually planning on making. This movie was announced during COVID. Yes, nerds, you're actually getting the Snyder Cut, and it'll release on HBO Max, and it'll be 4 hours long. The most famous thing about this movie is the length. We know that Snyder got to film some additional scenes, which were low-key the worst part of the movie, and finish some VFX that weren't quite there yet. It released in March of 2021 and was pretty good? I didn't expect to, but I did like this movie quite a bit. Now yes, 4 hours is an insane runtime for a movie with Ezra Miller Flash in it, but I do appreciate that Snyder gave us everything he had with this. I think it's important to remember that if Snyder released this in theaters, it wouldn't actually be this long. This is just a guy who loves his extended cuts. And why wouldn't he throw it all at us? This is going to be his last DC thing anyway, so there's no reason not to. What's interesting when discussing this movie is that the plot is obviously the same as the 2017 version, but the visuals, characters, and overall vibe feel completely different. Gone are those weird looking visuals fixing mustache CGI and blending two styles, and now present is a desaturated color palette that is almost, but not quite, black and white. I won't go through every change here in this movie. I think the most glaring is the finale, which has an entirely different resolution, which is one of the coolest scenes in a comic book movie ever. Absolutely absurd that Whedon replaced that with this.
Dostoevsky!
We actually get to see characters do cool stuff and play off one another. My favorite bit in the whole movie has to be after Wonder Woman cuts Steppenwolf's head off and Darkseid is just staring at the Justice League and they're staring back like, yup, here we are. That little moment is so raw. Flash gets more character, Cyborg gets more character, the whole league does honestly. Aquaman is still a bit underdeveloped, but not nearly as much as the 2017 version. The scene where they save Dr. Stone from the parademons is entirely different. The league actually jumps into action this time instead of just sitting around cracking jokes, and we get this, which I think is really, really cool. It's just a better version of the movie we already saw. Steppenwolf's design is much better, even if he does have little meow meow kitten eyes. Superman looks a lot cooler in the black, even if it isn't explained why he's wearing it, but it should have been back to red and blue for this shot. The thing just feels like an actual movie, which the 2017 movie didn't. It literally felt like it was made by an AI. That's not to say this is a perfect movie. There are some really dumb things in there, like the Aquaman choir singing part.
Shut the fuck up!
And the fact that we get the exact same scene of Steppenwolf talking to Darkseid twice. But overall, I still think this is a fun watch. It is not my definitive version of the Justice League, but it's nice that we at least have one good Justice League movie. But then the dream sequence happens. I really can't stand this dream scene. It is the dumbest scene ever. I think this scene perfectly encapsulates all the stupid shit that people think Snyder's movies are full of. Batman says fuck, Joker talks about giving him a handjob, everyone's wearing an ugly, edgy version of their costume and fighting an evil Superman. Deathstroke has a mohawk. The one good thing this scene did was confirm to everyone that it was not studio meddling. Jared Leto was just that bad as Joker.
How'd she suffered so?
And to end it all with Ben Affleck talking to Martian Manhunter in his driveway, and Martian Manhunter is just like, yeah, I was here the whole time. Like, thanks for the fucking help, man. You could have done something other than roleplay as Superman's mom in order to... Wait, why does he do this? This actually makes no sense. But whatever, at least we got to see Martian Manhunter, I guess. And he gets the final shot of the movie? You had this. Just stop it here. I think the idea of a post-apocalyptic Justice League movie with a bunch of leftovers is actually conceptually pretty cool, but but I don't think anyone out there is that excited about this lineup. So no, as much as I like this version of Justice League, I'm not someone clamoring for the Snyderverse to continue on. In fact, that James Gunn guy seems to have some pretty good ideas. I imagine a DC universe helmed by him would be really good, especially after he made... In this video, I have pretty much only talked about good movies. I said pretty much, but while I like Aquaman, Shazam, Birds of Prey, and the Snyder Cut just fine, none of them are like total bangers. But this, oh yeah, this shit rips. Background time. James Gunn makes Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2. Then Disney fires him from Volume 3 for some insensitive tweets from back in the day. Nobody likes this, the whole cast says they stand with him, with some threatening to not return. DC says, hey, remember that time we tried to make a Guardian of the Galaxy? Let's get the actual guy who made it to do it for us this time. So, DC hires James Gunn for Suicide Squad 2, called The Suicide Squad. I'm sure that won't confuse anybody. And then Marvel turns around and is like, hey, remember that thing we said about us not wanting you to make a movie for us anymore? Well, my mom said it's okay for you to make another movie for us now, if your mom says it's okay. So, James Gunn makes The Suicide Squad. The spin-off show Peacemaker returns to Marvel to make Volume 3 in a holiday special, and now he runs DC. Pretty wild turn of events, all things considered. This movie is more or less a full reboot of the first movie while keeping a handful of characters. Rick Flag, Harley Quinn, Amanda Waller, and Captain Boomerang all get another shot. Everyone else here is entirely new to the game. From the first 10 minutes, we know this is going to be a whole different ballgame than last time. The Suicide Squad will actually be in danger of dying. When you read Suicide Squad comics, you have a sense of unknowingness when you have a group of villains that are all put together. Sometimes the ones you think that are going to be the most evil end up being the most good, and vice versa. Characters are constantly killed, either in the field or by Waller, they're betraying each other, they're constantly trying to escape. The last movie did not take advantage of these fun parts of the premise, whereas this movie takes full advantage. Those first 10 minutes wipe out the entire Suicide Squad except for Harley and Rick Flag, so that we know we're in for a different type of movie. The opening shows us not only the stakes, but also who Waller considers the weak links and is willing to sacrifice, and who she considers the actual A-list squad, who are in her B team. Here we get Idris Elba as Bloodsport, who has a very similar backstory to Deadshot, but this time done well. John Cena as Peacemaker, who is more or less the comic relief, but with a vital role to the story. Ratcatcher 2 and Polka Dot Man, who are two of the more socially inept members of the squad, and King Shark, who's a big shark. This is one of the most comic booky superhero movies that exists. Between different title cards that make you feel like you're reading back-to-back issues, to ridiculously fun and campy uses of the characters' different abilities. It visually looks so good. There are countless incredible camera shots that invoke a wide range of emotions. What Gunn is good at in all his projects is balancing such a large cast. In a worse Suicide Squad movie, there might be a character like, oh, I don't know, a Crocodile Man or something, I'm just making something up, who doesn't get to do anything the whole time or have a character arc. But in this movie, even the shark who barely speaks gets a lot of depth and you're able to really feel for him. Every member of the squad feels like a real person. Violent and evil and cruel as they might be, they're all still people, and you can really feel that. There is no reason on paper that you should empathize with Peacemaker, especially after what he does by the end, but you still do, and that is a crazy feat to pull off. The action here is really, really good. The fight between Flag and Peacemaker, Harley's escape scene, even this more comedic scene is framed and staged so well. Which is also to say, the movie is funny, of course.
Oh, he's offering you a pretty leaf to show you it means no harm.
Why the fuck would I want to leave? Peacemaker. It's actually very nice. Just put it against the wall.
But what I really love here is that this movie is actually using the premise to criticize things. The government in this movie is so evil, willing to let an entire nation get attacked by a giant starfish just so they could wipe their hands clean. I love seeing how Rick Flag, who was a regular bootlicker in the last movie, is appalled at what the government is willing to hide from people, and that the government is going to prey on Peacemaker's own traumas in order to get him on their side, weaponizing his blind faith in peace. Did I mention I think this movie is really, really good? They make Waller so fucking scary here, I actually got chills.
God damn it! Cosmos X! This is your last motherfucking warning!
Remember when this was the most memorable thing about her character?
Behold the voice of God.
This is just an awesome superhero movie with awesome visuals, costume design, needle drops, a great score, and really nice looking CGI in the same year that we were getting this. This is just the exact kind of superhero content I want. I would watch 100 of these movies. Unfortunately, this movie is another entry in the no money cinematic universe because of COVID and releasing on HBO Max, but it was popular enough to get a spin-off show, so I think that's a victory in many ways. I wouldn't say DC was in a great position after these last couple movies, but they did have more hits than misses, for me personally at least. I think their problem was that their most popular characters were now Aquaman and Shazam and Harley Quinn instead of, you know, Batman and Superman. Plus we had Joker, which wasn't in the DCEU, but it made a ton of money, so I think DC's eye was sort of leaving the ball away from making a successful cinematic universe and towards throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. But there was one man who was going to do everything in his power to right this sinking ship.
It's about drive, it's about power. We stay hungry, we devour. Put in the work, put in the hours, and take what's ours.
Yep. Next time, we're covering the last gasp of the DCEU, everything from Peacemaker and Black Adam, all the way up until Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. If you like this movie and you want to see a part 3, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment, tell me what you think of these last 6 movies I talked about, and we'll see you in part 3.